Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good. All right. We're back with the world's most exciting podcast. I was gonna do like one of those like radio intros where you're really loud to start, but today we're continuing our story last week about the Bitcoin expert, the Bitcoin magician, Kayla. Today we're gonna be focusing more on Kayla's origin story. How does one get into the career of cryptocurrency and such, right?
Yeah, okay, sounds good. I'm excited to
Does
talk
that
about
sound like
that,
a
Dan.
plan?
I love
So,
it.
all right, I'll start you off. So Kayla and I were tight in college. We were like homies. We were roommates for 2 out of 4 years, sophomore year and senior year.
Mhm.
We saw some good times. We saw some bad times.
Yep.
Literal good and bad times also because we were on the track and cross country team. So a little runner joke for you.
Good.
We used to, yeah, we had an apartment senior year. I slept in the living
Yeah.
room on like a
Yeah.
futon thing. What else? What else were some things
That
that
was
happened?
wild.
Kayla cut a watermelon on the sidewalk. We shot each
Yeah.
other. We shot each other with water guns full of sriracha.
Yeah.
We took a cross country road trip uh, to document sriracha culture in the United States one
Yeah.
summer. I feel like that's more or less a good like where your journey into Bitcoin started. Is that right?
That's true. Also, I can tell you know me well because you know that that's where it starts. Like I feel like most people who know me don't know that. So
So yeah, so we graduated from small liberal arts college, who shall remain nameless, in 2016. And what did you study in college?
yeah. So in the college, I studied history. I studied history and a minor in psychology. But I
What sorts of
really,
classes did you take?
yeah. I mean, I took a bunch of different classes and all kinds of things. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I was like, oh, I'll be a history major. It's cool.
Hmm.
But my favorite classes or the favorite stuff I learned, I guess, was actually anthropology. But I often like got annoyed by anthropology as taught in school because I'm like unique and special, so they couldn't teach it to me.
Can I
Um,
pause you for a second?
yeah,
And there's like a lot of like glare coming from the window behind you, I think.
yeah, it's
Would it
true.
be possible to like, do you have a curtain or something there?
1 second, let me see. How's that? Is that better?
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Wow, I didn't even know that's where the window was. I thought the window was like a different location based on the light.
Oh,
Stupid brain. So,
good.
what sort of like did you what
Yeah,
anthropology
yeah.
classes you took?
So I really like I like my senior year. I really started getting into anthropology, especially economic anthropology, which is studying how people interact with the economy, and like not just in the U.S. but anywhere, any kind of economy. So I really got into that, and from that I was like, like let me dive into this. What are like weird ways that people interact with the economy? And that's actually how I got into Sriracha because I was
Wait, could you tell
like,
that little story that you used to always tell about
which one?
you know the one for
I told a
economic
lot of stories.
anthropology about the big stones?
Oh, the big stones? Yeah, yeah, sure. So one of my favorite examples, thank you, Dan, of economic anthropology not being necessarily like a just like a thing in the States, but like kind of everywhere in the world, um, is so like actually I'm gonna talk about like money anthropology. So it's like like how do people interact with money? How do people make money? So for this example, there were folks who were living in I think in the Polynesian islands who would use like kind of like large stone wheels as money back in the day, and so using a large stone wheel as money isn't necessarily the most convenient thing, but it was like kind of like what they were doing. So for instance, like you had to pay a dowry, which is like paying to get married to someone, which people also used to do back in the day all over the world. Some still do. You would, for instance, have to bring a stone wheel between one island and the next island because it's like Polynesia. There's like a lot of different islands. And so people would like put it in their boat and try to go from one island to next with a big stone wheel in it.
Must have been
And
fun.
yeah, yeah, it must have been fun. The problem with that is that some like a couple times the boat sank because it's like a big piece of stone in a boat. And when that happened, people still remember that a stone wheel had been there before. So they would just, even though it was in the bottom of the ocean, they would say, like, oh, well, we know there's a stone wheel there. So you have this stone wheel. So like now we know you're the owner of it. And then if someone wanted to like, then pay it forward and pay someone else with that stone wheel, they would just be the owner of it, but no one could actually see it or touch it, which I think is a good example of how money is like actually pretty intangible and not
It's
often
not
kind of just like
real.
a made up thing. It's not really like a real thing.
I have a couple of comments. Number one is, imagine somebody asking you to be their best man back in the day. It's like, fuck, I gotta help you move this giant stone wheel across the river. Probably break my back and then get tetanus
Sure,
and
it's a whole
die.
different kind of labor. Yeah.
And then the second thing is like, that's basically money today, right? It's like most of our money is literally just like on a ledger of like supposed to represent. People assume, if you ask people, what do those numbers in your account represent, they'd be like, oh, they represent like pieces of paper somewhere. But it's like, not really, right? There's probably not
Yeah,
enough paper money to actually match all the dollars that people
exactly.
supposedly have.
Exactly. Yeah, money is super made up. So it's really cool to study because it's like it's really important in our world, but also it's like not based on anything concrete.
So
Like stone
since
wheels.
money is made up, donate all your extra money to my Patreon, Dr. Cream at patreon.com. You don't need the money. It's not real.
Yeah. That's basically what people should say, but yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay,
Um,
so so you're studying economic anthropology,
yeah.
and
So
then what?
I was doing a lot of research on that by myself because it's hard to find a place to study that in school. I got into Sriracha because I was like, oh, this is in the kind of an economic anthropology thing because it's like studying how people do something with the economy. That's kind of strange. At the time, Sriracha was like just starting to pop up on college campuses and like become ubiquitous. So it's
For
like probably
anybody who doesn't
2011.
know, Sriracha is that hot sauce that's kind of pasty, comes in the
Got the
bottle with the
rooster on
green
the
top,
bottle.
rooster
Yeah.
sauce. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Thanks, Dan. Yeah. So I was like, this is interesting. Why is this in our cafeteria now? I like it. It's good. I like eating it because it was in our school cafeteria and other places. So then I did some research on it. I got the school to give me a grant for like technically history research, but they gave it to me for this one instead, which they were later kind of salty about. Um, yeah, and then I just drove across the country with Dan, and we took this like little road trip around to learn about Sriracha,
Where
which
can people
was
find info like on that road trip? Is there still like a Twitter account up for it?
there. Yeah, there's actually still is. I was thinking about it. I think it's just under the handle Sriracha Summer.
Yeah, and
And
if you look
I
up
don't.
Sriracha Blast on YouTube, you can find
Yeah.
videos of us blasting each other with Sriracha.
Yeah, that's probably the best stuff to look up. Honestly, if you're gonna pick anything, I would say pick that. So yeah, so that was it was really interesting. I feel like we like learned a lot about ourselves and also about Sriracha, which is good. And it's not, like always good to go on a road trip with your buddy. And yeah, and then we got to California eventually, lots of different circumstances, but Dan ended up flying back across the states, and I hung out for the summer, mostly in Los Angeles, and was doing research. Very nicely, someone let me stay at her place for free, who I met through sophomore, and then ended up doing research for the summer on Sriracha and working on that being like cool economic anthropology, cool. So that happened, and then after school ended, that was like my senior year. I was doing like writing about that research. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, let me actually kind of like get a little more serious about this and think about what I want to do because I had to get a job. And I was like, I really would like
Do
to
you,
get something working
could
in
you
economic anthropology.
could you sum up quickly for our listeners like what your findings were? All this
Yeah, sure.
Sriracha
Sure.
research that you did?
Yeah. So it was actually really interesting. Um, So let's see. So like Sriracha like became really popular. Cool. That was kind of what I was trying to research, but I was like, oh, there's like a lot to the story. Some details that I found out from through various means, a lot of means, were like one thing is that it was very like surprising that the a company owner had enough money to start the company.
Mm.
So he was a refugee from the Vietnam War, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, and he escaped from Vietnam with all of his assets converted into gold, which he hid in condensed milk containers, like condensed milk, like little
Oh
like tin.
shoot.
And yeah, and so he was able to get out of the country with that. And he arrived in the States actually when gold was at its most valuable it's ever been in. And so he had
Speaking
a
of
lot of,
economics.
Yeah, exactly. So he actually had a lot of money, or enough to start a company, which is very unusual for a refugee to show up
Hmm.
with a very small amount of gold. It just like was during stagflation when gold got super valuable for like 2 months.
Huh.
It's kind of like Bitcoin today. Um, yeah,
Same.
so he showed up enough to buy a company then, or like buy a factory to make sriracha sauce. So he like was one of the few refugees who started a company in Los Angeles at the time and was just making it there. A few other things that are interesting. One is like there was this controversy about the Sriracha factory and like whether it should be closed. For a while, it was kind of like briefly shut down because people were saying it was polluting the air in the city. And actually, if you're curious, it's called the Sriracha apocalypse. That really was not the case. People were completely making that up, and it was actually kind of like a complicated, interesting racist situation which we don't have to get into, but it was, yeah, I'd say definitely not happening. There's a lot of like really good research that mostly I did that I could share with you because I never published it, and also some other stuff that's publicly out there. That's really
That'd
good.
be a cool article.
I thought about
Um,
it so many times. Yeah, I just never got around to publishing it. Yeah.
Story of my life.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So,
Basically, there's court records that prove that people who were everyone who was like suing him for this and making public claims about it was all related to city council members who also have written emails to each other saying that they wanted to fuck this guy over and they hated him. So
wow.
yeah. So anyway,
So,
so yeah, that's the
is
story
it,
there.
and Kayla, is it better to invest your money in gold or in Bitcoin?
In Sriracha for sure. um, I would say that it's both of them are historically good investments, so you can probably do either one. But I
You
don't give investment advice.
you heard it here first. Kayla Green, stamp of approval. So, okay, so you did a bunch of research on Sriracha. That was your thesis.
My
Anything else
thesis.
you want to say about your thesis, or you want to get right into the post college frantic job search chapter?
Yeah, I think I'm good to go to start post college. What do you think?
Sure.
What's
Post
your
college is the worst. Everybody I've talked to says it's just like you leave this like very structured environment where it's like, yeah, you have choices, but at the end of the day, like you're still like taking classes, reading and writing, and like just trying to like get good grades basically. So it's like there's not really that much freedom. And then you graduate and it's like, well, you got to find a way to survive. And
Yeah,
like how you do that is up to you.
yeah.
So,
That's really true. Yeah, I would say that so the surprising things about me for post college, like recapping, I haven't really thought about this in a while, but was I feel like that my social life was absolutely terrible. My
also common post college problem.
yeah, yeah, really bad with like maybe one or two exceptions. But my professional life was actually really good. And I think it was like almost like I took refuge in that because I was like,
Mm.
at least this is going well.
I'd actually
Um,
just pause there and like give advice to anybody who's like soon to graduate college would be to like invest in your social life and like plan on how you're going to
it's so
maintain
hard.
connections with people after college because it gets a lot harder when you're not seeing people like when
It's
you're
so
not on
surprisingly
campus
hard.
with people. Yeah.
Good call, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you doubled down on your professional life.
Yeah. So basically, I was living with my girlfriend for whatever reason, and we went and were staying at her parents' place, and we were living in her parents' basement in San Francisco after college. And also, good advice for post college: maybe consider not moving in with your partner if it's not time to do so yet. Just because it's the end of college, it'd be good to live on your own for a little bit too. So anyway, so did that, and I was like, I need to get out of here. I need a job because I do not want to live with my girlfriend's parents anymore. And I like basically continually applied for all jobs that I thought were related to economic anthropology that I thought I could maybe get
Mm.
um, really fast. So I applied to like probably like 500, 600 jobs, like some just crazy amount of jobs.
How do you apply to that many jobs?
So okay, so part of what I did is I said like these are areas I think I would want a job in,
Yeah.
and I like use sites that like are make it easier to apply in bulk. So I applied like one of my favorite sites to use is called Angel List, which is a startup site that like I just stumbled upon, and they listed like a lot of jobs at early startups, which I was like I could probably get this because they're just like looking basically for like unpaid interns who they can work the hell out of, and I was like, well, I could do that, sure.
Mm.
Um, so I applied for like they let you apply in bulk for stuff. So I just like would go and just like submit for
So
everything.
you just like upload a resume.
Yeah, exactly. And just like
Is
be
there
like,
anything
I'm
else?
interested, contact me, like click on all the companies, just hit your resume without actually putting in a cover letter for a lot of them, stuff like that.
Yeah, because I've had like kind of a terrible experience where like every job I want to apply for, you have to upload a resume and also fill out all the information that was on your
Yeah.
resume. And then
Yeah.
also like they say if you want to actually have a shot, you have to write a cover letter. And so then
Yep.
spend like an hour writing the cover letter
Yeah.
that's like kind of tuned to this particular job, but basically the
Getting
same
jobs is
story
terrible.
that I've
Yeah.
told hundreds of times on other cover letters. And like when you put that much effort into an application, it's very frustrating if you don't get anything. So I think like your approach of just like applying in bulk is very appealing. And like if people can figure out how to, so angel list is what how you did it.
Yeah. And I don't, I mean, again, like it's maybe not the best way to get a job that you really want, but in terms of
Seems
getting
like the
a
best way to
job,
get a job.
yeah, just like the two job offers I got was one to help co-found an accounting startup that was based in Estonia. And I was like, I'm not ready to found a company. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Like it
Like, do
was to
not.
be a co-founder.
Yeah, he said you should start the company it's already going in Estonia. We have 40 employees. You should start it in the States. And I was like, on
Sounds
what
almost like
basis
a
are you offering
scam.
me this? What?
Sounds almost like a scam. Like somebody's gonna be like,
Yeah,
"Oh
yeah,
yeah, just give me $200,000 as
yeah.
capital."
Basically, I mean that's what these startup things are like. These early companies, like they're basically like, we'll take anyone who will work hard and like let us exploit them. So that's what it was like.
Good old
And then
exploitation.
yeah,
Some things
exactly.
never
It's like you have a
change.
college degree and very important, and then also you work hard and let them exploit you. Like shouldn't be important, but it is. People like college degrees. It's like a proof that you can do stuff. And they'll be like,
It's
there you go.
proof that you can speak standard American English properly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you applied, and
So I
then
applied, so I got that job, and I also got another job, which is at the company I ended up working at, which is the Bitcoin exchange, like a place to take dollars and turn them into Bitcoin and vice versa. And I was like, this sounds like economic money anthropology. It sounds kind of funny. Like, sure. They offered me an internship. I was like, okay, cool, I'll take it.
an internship where it's like unpaid or like
It was paid,
peanuts.
but it was like minimum wage internship. I didn't know I would like actually have a job after it.
So this is the part of your story that has always been the most like surprising and impressive to me, that you were able to get a job working in Bitcoin when you had like essentially no background in computer science, right?
Yeah, well, this is the thing is like there was no able that was part of it. It was all like they just would hire anyone basically.
But they
So
hired you.
yeah, they hired me because I was there. So like at the time, Bitcoin was people thought it was a joke, like that it
This is
was
back in 2016.
yeah. So people thought it was like it had gone up for a little bit, but then it was back down, like being worthless, like in the hundreds of dollars for one Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, this is like worthless. No company has any momentum. It's not going anywhere. And so like they were just like working out of this like tiny office in San Francisco with all this like cheap IKEA furniture. And we're like, we might go out of business. Do you want to work here? And I was like, sure. So I was
Okay.
like, this will be funny. They actually paid me in Bitcoin at first. Like they said, you can choose, and I was like, okay, I'm working at a Bitcoin company. I might as well get paid in Bitcoin. This is interesting. Then I ran out of real money, so please don't kidnap me. I had to sell all my Bitcoin to like be alive. So I should have taken out a loan or something, because then I'd be rich now, but I didn't.
Why
And
taking out a loan? Why would that?
well, if I had like I could have like
Oh,
waited for
you
it to
sold
go
all your
up.
Bitcoin so you could like have money. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
You're saying you should have
Uh,
retained it.
yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I did that, and I was working as an intern for like 6 months. I was like, this is such a long internship that's so hard. Will you please hire me? And they're finally like, yes. And then I got hired, and then things were still difficult, but at least I like had more job security and was getting paid slightly better. And then I just continued doing that for a while. And like to answer your question, like what I was doing was like first I was like kind of like a secretary or like an executive assistant to the CEO and stuff.
Mm-hmm. How many people were in the
And
company?
so what
How many people were in the company?
at that time I think it was like 40 people. And like about half in Europe, half in the US. And then I moved over and was working in fraud and then compliance, then in customer success, and then in like program management.
All within
Um,
the same company.
yeah, which is
Um,
like pretty typical for a small startup. Is like you get moved around a lot.
okay. So, what was it like when you first started?
Uh,
Give us like a kind of artistic rendering of like
Okay, sounds
a
good.
day in
Yeah,
the
I mean,
life as an intern. You show up to this Bitcoin exchange
yeah.
company.
Basically, it was like encountering startup culture, like just running into it with my face, like you run into a glass door by accident. There you go. But yeah, so I would like, get up in the morning, be in my place that I moved into with my girlfriend, and get on the BART train from Berkeley, where we were living, over to San Francisco, go into like the tiny IKEA furniture office, and then do whatever like administrative chores, tasks like the CEO and whoever else wanted me to do.
So like what
Um,
kind of things would they make you do?
let's see. This is like, we are unhappy with the current software we're using for this. Can you like look at all the other softwares that do this and like
Mm.
help us pick one? Give me some options. Where we're trying to find a new office because this one's too small. We hate it and we think we're gonna grow. And I'm like, you're not gonna grow, but sure. And then they're like, can you help us find it? I was like, whatever.
So you're like a jack of all trades.
Yeah,
Like I
they were
need
like,
this thing done. It doesn't require
we
expertise.
yeah, they were like, we need a new PO box for our mail. Can you set it up? I'm like, yeah, sure. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I did that for a while. I was like, but it was really hard. Like I just worked a lot of hours. There was so much to do. I was also like really used to like thinking about work as like something you like put on your 9 to 5, you put on your work outfit, you go in and do your work. So I was like showing up in like church clothes, and they were just like laughing at me, be like, why are you wearing that? And I was like, what? But for startups, you're
You're
supposed to just
showing up in like your like light blue button down and like your khakis
yeah, or like
and
or like I wear a
trainers,
dress shirt
right?
and tuck it in if I felt fancy, yeah.
But you'd still wear trainers, right?
No, I was wearing dress shoes. Yeah,
Yeah.
which just like they thought was extra. Yeah, so they would be like, "Why are you dressed up? You should just be wearing a t-shirt. This is ridiculous." Like make fun of me, and I was like, "Okay."
Classic
Um,
Silicon Valley.
yeah, they were like, "Yeah, that's what's up," and they were like, everyone like talk about video games a lot. I was like, wasn't that into video games. I was like, okay, trying to figure out what they're saying, and it's really nerdy. But they had a lot of fun talking about Bitcoin. They were super passionate about Bitcoin. They thought it was the future, and I was like, cool. Like I mean, they got me a little bit on the same page. I don't know if I think it's the future, but I think it's an important technology for sure. Um, so yeah.
So then you
Um,
moved into fraud and compliance after that.
yeah, yeah. So I was working basically like every time you're like a financial platform. I mean, now I work for a company I mentioned before that sells software to fraud and compliance like teams. But
Mm-hmm.
the like at a crypto company, there's a lot of fraud that you have to deal with because not necessarily at the company, but your customers like fall victim to scams all the time. Like heard about crypto scams. So um, it'd be funny at this point, just like you look this up if you're watching this, but you should look up the like BitConnect scam. It's like one of the funniest scams that's ever happened in crypto.
It's
Um,
funny.
it's hilarious. It's so
Yeah,
funny.
people losing their livelihoods is so funny, Kayla.
You
No,
should
it's
we
funny.
should
It's
watch the
funny
YouTube
when they're
video.
rich.
Let's watch the YouTube video. It's really funny. We can watch it after this. We record this. Um, but definitely watch that. But yeah, so like just like stuff like that, like helping protect customers, and like if their like phone got hacked that had their Bitcoin on it, like how do you talk to them and stuff like that? How do you help them and stuff like that? So that was fraud stuff. Then I worked in compliance. It was like stuff like how do you help someone get an account? How do you like just like make sure you're handling like all of the like risks and like making sure that people you brought on aren't criminals, like stuff like that, to be customers. Um, and then I went to be in customer support. We all know that's like customer success, which is like a little more working with like bigger clients.
Mm-hmm.
And then like kind of like program management. So it's like in that case, it was like we had acquired a company, and we wanted to make sure that like its software worked good and stuff. So I was like supposed to like look at the software like over a couple of months and make sure everything was like worked good and stuff, and make recommendations.
So did you like that work?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think it was like probably my favorite stuff that I did was like because I was so young at that company, or sorry, because I was so early joining that company, I like got to work beyond my experience. So like I was just promoted like because like I was one of the first people there after it
Because it
grew.
was a small company.
Yeah, exactly. So like which is like kind of like the win loss of small companies. Like you can either get lucky and that happens, which I did, or you can get unlucky, which happens most of the time, and then you're just being overworked forever and the company fails. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, I got
my
lucky.
mom used to be a big believer in like big companies because that's how her father was, because like
Yeah.
her dad worked for Con Edison, a gas company in New York, and it worked
Mhm.
out well for him because it's good job security, good pension, good benefits. I think it's probably different now though, where a lot of times the big companies are just experts in exploiting people. But
Yeah.
back in
I
two
mean,
generations ago, it was more like big companies, secure, good benefits, small companies fail.
yeah. I mean, like that makes a lot of sense. Like that I should think that way. I think that like now big companies are like definitely a lot of security, more so, but not as much as it used to be. And then small companies, they have like a lot more like upside. Like you can make a lot more money, and it's really good in your resume if you're part of a company
Mm-hmm.
that like that's how I got my next job. Is I was part of a small company that succeeded.
Yeah, and like better networking opportunities, right? Like you probably knew the CEO of the company from day one, right?
Exactly. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like different. And also another benefit is that small companies are just super informal, which is also a negative too. So there's like no HR department. If like anyone's like
Mm-hmm.
sexually harassing you or like being racist or something, like you can
Oh,
suck it up.
right.
Which I benefited from being like a guy at the time. But then, like at the same time, like you can be like, well, there's no rules. I can do whatever I want, so as long as you like work hard and get your stuff done, no one gives you a hard time. There's no like stupid policies and stuff like that.
Mm. That's an interesting take for sure.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
trade-off.
is there anything you wish you knew back then, back when
Yeah,
you
for
first
sure.
started working?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I at back then I was like two things. Like one, I had no sense of boundaries. So like I would just be like, I'm gonna do whatever because my boss said to do it. I would like say how hard it would be, but I would just do it. And like
Mm.
I think like one time I was getting DMs at like direct messages at like 2 or 3 in the morning to
Mm-hmm.
be working on stuff, and I was just like, this should like I was like kind of like this is crazy. Now I know I'm like that would just should just wait until the morning. Like I can work on it in the morning. It's fine. Like you're not going to do good work at 2 or 3 a.m. But I was like
Sure.
doing that, so that didn't make sense. And
Mm-hmm.
then also, I mean, like you still have to work hard, but like boundaries should exist. And then
Right.
second, I would say that I was extremely impatient. Like I was like such a hothead and like not a good listener.
Mm.
And that really shot me in the butt because at any company, even you can be a hothead and like be passionate, but you have to like basically be kind of emotionally detached to do well in like most companies. So like I've gotten a lot better at that, but it's hard to get there.
So to remind yourself to be patient, you tattooed it on your finger, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like more for my personal life, but I also get a tattoo. It's like, yeah, be patient on my finger. Yeah.
In Spanish, but yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Cool. So your job, because it's like working on, mostly digital technologies, you were able to work totally remotely for a while, right?
That was another big benefit too. Some of these smaller companies can't even afford to have an office. We did have an office, but like most people weren't there. So like it allows
Yeah.
you to work wherever you want. So I was like spending a lot of time in other places. I was mostly based in DC by this point, but I was also like spent a lot of time in
Yeah.
Berlin, spent a lot of time in Spain. It was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, you and I weren't really then in a lot of contact back then. I didn't realize how much time you were spending like abroad, just
Yeah.
because
I
you
mean,
could, right? Because
part
you
of
could
it,
travel and work from wherever you
exactly.
wanted.
Exactly. Like we weren't talking as much, and then also like even for me, staying in touch with people got hard because I like lose my phones a lot and stuff, and I also kept like having to swap over like my like SIM card and stuff like that because I was like
Yeah.
being like, oh, I guess I'm gonna be in Berlin now for 3 months, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah,
So
that was a big benefit. That's like really a nice thing. Traveling for work kind of sucks sometimes, but if you can like travel, live somewhere, and then also happen to work there, that's really nice. I think.
tell us an interesting story from your international travels,
Oh my god.
or not, if you don't want
I'm trying to think
to.
of any stories that aren't terrible.
Terrible
I think
stories are some of the best ones. It's called
yeah.
type 2 fun. We have a friend named Zoe. Hi, if you're watching this, Zoe, who used to talk about type 1 fun, which is like fun at the time, and type 2 fun, which is fun
Fun in
to tell,
retrospect.
tell a story about later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll think if I see. I'm gonna talk most of the type one fun. I think that like I really liked when I like made some good friendships because I would meet people like online through working with them and be like, oh, this is fun. I'm always talking to this person who happens to live in Germany. I'm never gonna see them, and then I literally would be like, wait, should I move to Germany and just become best friends with this person and spend all my time with them? Like, and I actually could do that.
Probably not.
Yeah, so I should, like, the should is not there. And I did have a couple times where I was like, I'm going to do this. Then I changed my mind at the last minute, including one where I went to the airport with all my stuff and then turned around and went back home.
Oh, tell that story.
Oh my God. So my best friend at work was moving to Berlin. And I was like, you're my best friend. Like, it was also like one of my best friends in my normal life too. I really liked her. So I was like, oh my God, wait, like I want to spend time in Berlin anyway. I'm tired of the States. I'm young. Like, why don't I just move to Germany for like a long time? I've been there before. I was like, I love the city. So then I was like, basically was like, okay, I'm living in DC. I said goodbye to my friends in DC, packed all my stuff up, like got put an Airbnb in Germany. I was going to stay in for a while, like while I was looking for a place, and went to the airport in DC, like walked up to the gate and was like, I'm going to go, time to go. And then I was like, at the gate and I turned around. I was like, no, I don't want to go. I want to stay in DC. And then I just like literally like ran out of the airport, put my stuff back in a taxi, was like crying and called my friend in Germany, like, sorry, I'm not coming. And she was like, what the fuck, dude? Like literally like,
It literally
but then
sounds
my
like a
friends in DC
scene
were like,
from so
why
many
are you so,
movies.
yeah, except one was just like, why are you so unpredictable? Just chill out. And I was like, good point, good point. Yeah.
I am what I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a little more predictable now, but yeah.
Hey, being unpredictable can be a good thing or a bad thing.
Exactly.
Okay. Do you want to talk about something or should I keep asking you questions?
Yeah, I have like a couple more things I can talk about.
Okay, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I mean, let me see. So let me wrap up that experience. So like basically like the one of the most interesting things about working at an exchange at the time was it was just like such a unique opportunity to watch a company of just like honestly like very nerdy doing their own thing, like kind of evangelists for a technology that many people thought would never pan out, turn into like world famous, like literally like globally famous, like incredibly rich, incredibly well respected, like leaders, right?
Really?
Yeah. Like these people are like literally now on like Forbes top whatever list, like just like stuff like that, right? And they're the same people, but they're, people just view them differently because what they're working in got very successful, so like now obviously Bitcoin is huge. The market for Bitcoin alone is worth over $1 trillion. So like it just is like something where these people have made so much money that they get more respect because of that, like making money will definitely make people respect you is what's something I've seen.
Do
Which
they
is
ever
fine.
like invite you over their mansions for like a jacuzzi party or something?
No, yeah,
Could you
we would
invite
hang out.
yourself?
That's another thing too is about the culture is that people don't tend to be super opulent. Like they'll have like nice interior design, but in kind of like an outwardly like meh space. And then,
Yeah.
kind of just like fancy stuff that doesn't look super fancy, but actually is fancy.
Like the classic like Mark Zuckerberg jeans and a t-shirt.
Right. Exactly. And then they'll like often like work, spend so much time working that it's like they're never home either. So like if we would hang out, we'd be like just like chilling, and someone would be like 8 p.m., 10 p.m. in the office, and someone would be like, should we get pizza? Everyone would be like, yeah. And we sit down and talk about Bitcoin for 30 minutes about over pizza, everyone being excited, and then everyone would go back to work and then go home at like 11. So it was just like
Talk about economic anthropology, or more, maybe perhaps better yet, like economic psychology, where people just get addicted to making money. It seems to be a pattern with like very wealthy people where they don't like really just enjoy the luxury of like they don't stop working, right? Because it's like an addiction. They just love. There's at least one millionaire that I saw an interview with. He's just like making money is just like what I do. Like, I just
yeah.
feel I just always want to make more money.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing too. I think that like something I would say about this is like first off, I don't like I think that stereotype is pretty true for some people, but I think also like at least with these people I worked with who I saw become very wealthy, they weren't really that motivated by making money. Like they were, but they were
Yeah.
mostly motivated by like we are like almost like kind of like a religious zeal for this. Like we are evangelists. Like we are going to bring this to the world. And so they were like, like what our CEO said like at that company was like, if I weren't like, this is just what I would be doing even if I didn't get paid for it, right? Like, which I think is really true
I just
about
happen to
him.
be making millions of dollars, but
Yeah,
really
like it's
I care
convenient
about saving the
if your
world.
interests lie there. Yeah. But it's like I think it's the same kind of thing where like if someone was like an artist, they would just and they got paid so much money for it, like what some artists do, they would just keep making art. It just like happens to be something that we as society value certain kinds of work a lot more than we do other kinds of work.
I would bet that the money has something to do with it, though.
Oh,
It
I
doesn't
mean,
have.
like you can't keep working like just like people are like, oh, I want to be a musician, they can't because they
Yeah.
won't make any money. Like it's
Right.
like it helps people stay in it. But I think
Right.
that the how much marginally like how much each day money you would make
Yeah.
more, I think didn't make as much of a difference as you might expect for these people.
Mm.
Yeah.
So these people are like believe that Bitcoin like is much better than traditional currencies.
Yeah. Huge believers in that. Huge
Why?
believers. I think because like there's like, Bitcoin is born out of this distrust of the, centralized financial system. So something run by governments and by kind of like large institutions. And they really liked how it's much more governed by code. Like it just basically is
Yeah.
governed by like whatever people program, and then people can basically vote democratically to like choose that. So it's basically like instead of having the ultimate structure financial system being owned by governments and large centralized institutions, it's like kind of a more democratic financial system that really could be voted and controlled on by anyone. And it just happens that these people are the ones who care, and so like they end up having a
Yeah.
much bigger voice because they're the ones who actually learn it and then like invest in it and stuff like that. So
Right.
they now have the voice in it, but like at the time they just kind of chose to get interested and
That's kind of what I was gonna say. Is like I can think of two factors where it's not so equal. Number one is whoever has the most computing power gets to mine the bitcoins,
yeah.
right? And number two is like it requires a huge degree of technological literacy, right? Like I don't see
Yes.
my parents, I mean
Yes.
definitely not grandparents, but not let alone like my 60-year-old parents getting into Bitcoin because they just throw
Exactly.
up
So
their
like
hands and they're like, I don't understand it. I'm never
yeah.
gonna get it.
Yeah. So if you're like a like bro with an interest in like tech and finance, like in 2008,
Or a
like this
lady.
might be sorry?
Or a lady.
Yeah, or I mean bros are ladies are also bros in my book. But anyway, but if you like this could be a great thing for you and could be perfect fit, but for a lot of people it wouldn't have been the right fit. And like now, like that was back then, it was pretty democratic. It still is, but it's just democracy on a different scale where you need to have like a lot more people on your team because so many more people are in it to be able to make a difference.
So besides being more democratic, they thought that's basically the gist of it, why they believed in Bitcoin over centralized
Yeah, I
currency.
think so because they were like, this is a decentralized financial system that actually works. The first time it actually worked. I think they also were like, there's just so many like benefits of that, right? Like one thing about that is that you can make payments to anyone anywhere in the world, which most of us may be like, we don't care about, and you can already do that. But they were like, it's so much faster, cheaper, easier with this, which is true.
Mm.
Um, so be like, that makes a huge difference, which it does. But some of us might not care about the difference, but it does make a big difference. Um, you
Yeah.
don't have the same kind of like destructive like to people's lives like kind of like financial and monetary policies, right? Because you can democratically set it yourselves as a people versus like, okay, if the government of Argentina creates damaging monetary policies, now all our lives are going to be ruined because we will have crazy inflation, right? Like you don't have to worry about that with this because you can just like, you know, code
Yeah.
it.
Do you think though, like people who don't have a lot of technological savvy could potentially get screwed over by such a technologically
Yeah, I mean, there's
advanced system? As opposed, I mean, like
definitely,
anybody can understand something like, I mean, I guess even traditional money requires math. That's like one of the reasons why math
definitely,
really was developed was to keep track of accounts. Like in ancient, some of the first mathematical artifacts we have are like ledgers of how many cows were traded for how many sheep and in cuneiform tablets and stuff like that, right? So like nowadays it's obviously much more complicated, but I think I'm just thinking about people who aren't extremely like mathematically or technologically literate. They still can know like, okay, I have a $20 bill in my pocket. I'm exchanging it for a good that costs $20. I mean, I feel like this isn't really the topic of the podcast, right?
no,
But
this is
I'm
exactly
worried
right.
that people like that could be left behind. Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. Like that's the thing, right? Is like anything that's like a tech innovate, like so much of our world is controlled by complicated like math and finance, and this is
Mm-hmm.
exactly in that vein. There are people who
Yeah.
do stuff with Bitcoin who are not like who can't code with computers, but they all still know how to use the internet really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to be like that, and then also like it's very much run mostly by men. It's like mostly white people. Like it's like really
Yeah.
like there's a certain kind of like also social like norm. You get younger people like of like
Mm-hmm.
how to interact that makes you successful in the space for sure.
Yeah, and if we think about like how you get into a career like Bitcoin, I mean, you said already like having a college degree was basically a prerequisite. Having a
Yep.
college degree from an elite school certainly helps,
It is. I mean, you
right?
could have, if you were earlier than me, you could have been like, I don't have a college degree. I'm like a wacky founder. Like I'm going to do this, but you
Right.
still have to be like super good at like coding, like enough so to like go to any school like you
Right.
want, just to
Ha-
choose to go.
Having what a lot of people call like cultural capital, right? Having connections coming from like an upper middle class family where you can
Yep.
afford good high
To
school,
choose to
good
pursue
college,
someone
all that
something.
stuff. Like
Yeah.
with so many careers, like kind of greases the gears
Oh,
that allows you to get into the field. But
exactly.
at least in theory, right? If you want to like self-educate on coding, like with a lot of fields nowadays, there's so much online
You can learn
information
it for
and
sure. Yeah.
resources. You can learn a lot online, and so there's always some hope. But did you have to learn coding, or did you learn much about coding in your?
No. I did. I mean, like I know a lot more than I used to, but I still don't know. I wouldn't say I know how to code. Like I know how to like what I can do now well is like run other people's code.
Mm,
And then also like I can code some super basic stuff, but I mean, especially for Bitcoin, it's just really complicated. I'm not even
mm-hmm.
close.
You did take what intro to comp sci in
Yeah,
college?
and I got like a D in it. I think I was really bad.
D's get degrees, do they? C's get degrees. Okay. We are kind of running a little bit long, so I feel like we should try to focus in on some of the most important questions to wrap up.
Okay.
Um, where are you at now in your career?
Yeah, so I'm
Like,
now at
how
the
can you
company.
describe the progression from where you started to
Uh,
where you're at now?
Got it. Okay, so yeah, I mean, my career has kind of grown with Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
So like where I started, I was kind of like a wacky intern who was like, I'm just gonna like be chaotic and like work hard and like hopefully something comes of it because of my like background and privilege. And like, what do you know? Something did come of it. Like, got lucky there with like the company getting successful,
Yeah.
and learned a lot of things. Tried a bunch of different roles, like experienced a lot of different things. From there, I actually now I'm at like a more professional company that is like not a big company yet, but maybe someday will be. And again, it's like kind of like more in that medium size range where it's trying to become big and you can't be wild, wacky, and crazy. You kind of are like, okay, like I have a normal job, but there are more boundaries, there's more HR, stuff like that. It's still not completely like that, but it's more normal. And in terms of my like job, I'm more like kind of like, yeah, like this is like the life of a like little middle manager where I'm kind of hanging out and like don't have a lot of power or control in my organization, have like a little bit, and that's what I'm doing now. And it's like I think that like my growth there is kind of mirroring what's happened with Bitcoin, where it's gone from a wacky, edgy thing to like kind of more mainstream, but not completely mainstream yet. And then maybe someday it'll be more mainstream and I'll have a different job. Who knows?
Wow. So you comparing yourself to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a symbol of you, and you
Exactly.
are a
Exactly.
symbol
Yep.
of
It's
Bitcoin.
all about me.
We're all connected. Um, all right. Potentially last question.
Okay.
What do you see yourself doing in like 5 to 10 years?
Good question.
I
Okay,
know.
like in terms of what I would like to do, my dream would be to do like a cryptocurrency payments, it's like Bitcoin and other stuff, and social networking sort of site for sex workers.
Hmm.
Right now, that's what I would like to do. But I also think that if I tried to do that, I
Like
would be in jail.
Kinkton.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, kind of like yeah, something like that. And I think that'd be great because it's so hard to be a sex worker in this country and also many places in the world, and like really the problems that cryptocurrency can solve could really help with that. So a lot of sex
Hmm.
workers are already like starting to use cryptocurrencies, but they all like
Hmm.
are doing it like under on the DL. It'd be great to be
Yeah.
able to like have it out in the open, but also I would definitely end up in jail if I tried to do that. So I'm not going to do that. Um, and given that I'm not going to do that, I'm not sure. I'm like enjoying my career right now. If something else comes up as like a cool idea, then I'm good doing that.
Go with the flow. All right. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap up the interview. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. This is a really cool idea you have, and I'm excited to watch this and also like your other episodes. And I hope you talk to some other people who I know soon.
I'm gonna talk to some people you know,
That sounds good.
and get around to editing these maybe or maybe not. Maybe just throw them up. All right, that's it for the record.